Since we last saw our sparkly heroine, scrapbookers around the globe faced a brave new world and prospered with creativity. But somewhere, someone called for her assistance. I haven't scrapbooked in such a long while. I'm not sure I remember how. Where do I start? Glitter Girl, can you help?
Of course I can. My biggest piece of advice for getting back into something is to go with what you know already works. So what I do if I'm really stuck or I have taken a long break and I can't quite figure out what it is that I do with paper and other bits of paper and a photo and some words is that I go to something that I know I already like, that I've already made. That way I'm not comparing myself to someone else. I'm doing something that I know works because I've made it with my own two hands, rather than looking at Pinterest or looking at web pages and picking out something and saying, oh my goodness, that's beautiful. I have no idea how to make it. This is something that I've made with my own two hands and I know I can do, so that's somewhere for me to start. So normally I would pick something that is my personal favorite, maybe flip through an album and just go to a page that I know I love and then take it out of the album, put it on my desk, and have a bit of a starting point for a place to gather inspiration. However, this time I didn't just pick an album and grab a layout randomly. I decided to let you be part of the process, and what I did was to take one of the layouts from Glitter Girl's most watched video in the original 122 episodes. So that was actually episode 4 of 122. Number 4 has been watched the most, and it has a lot of layouts in it, but this is one of them. So I picked this one, and I'm going to take inspiration from it and make a new page right now. So you can either follow along by following the steps to this layout, and I'll show you how I make it, or you can take the steps of looking at a layout of your own and take inspiration from that and just use this as a little bit of a stepping stone along the way. Okay, so first, I'm going to show you some supplies that I pulled out and the photos. So this original layout had a photo booth strip, and I'm not going with that today. I instead have printed 2 photos on a 4x6, so they're just smaller than 3x4. And these are the 2 pictures that go with the story that I want to tell. Now, here's another recommendation. If you are stuck and you're not quite sure what you want to be scrapping, or you feel like you're not going to remember how to do it, don't play it safe. Don't go with a set of photos that you aren't really all that invested in. Because to give your best effort, you need something that you're 100% behind. Pick photos you love and pick something that you have something to say about. And that will help it all go together. And it might be 1 photo, it might be 10 photos. But go with something that you have a passion about rather than going, oh, but these photos are really important. And what if I don't remember how to do it and I kind of mess it up? Don't worry about that. You will scrap better if you go with something that you absolutely love and you have a story to tell, because then you won't get to the end and go, oh, but maybe I don't want to tell this story, or I don't know how to tell this story. If you go with photos that really have something in mind for you and photos that you love that make you happy or give you some sort of emotional flair, then your artistic flair will follow. Okay, so I've picked these 2 photos, which I haven't scrapped and I really want to scrap, and there's a specific story that I want to tell. So that gives me a lot of energy. And then I pick some supplies. And here's the other thing. I now am in a mindset where I use a real mix of old and new, and that has made me a much happier scrapbooker. So I'm mixing up all sorts of things that I've held on to for years, and I'm not using it as an excuse to hold on to everything for more and more years and years, but rather to go ahead and mix those things and say, I'm not going to hold on to them and keep them on my shelf forever. I'm going to get them in my albums, even if they're not 100% brand new, even if they're not completely on trend, even if they're not the things that are all over Pinterest. I don't care. What needs to happen for me is that the page needs to make me happy. And I have done things over the years like hoard old Cosmo Cricut papers. Aw, can we just sing for the glory that was? You know, things like this. I loved these rich colors with a little bit of vintage flair, but not overly aged. I love that they're a bit retro and a little bit mod, but they're not really, really one time period. You could use this for 60s or 70s or 80s and it would feel that little bit of retro. You can use it for 50s. I don't know if we could go all the way back to the 40s. Maybe. This maybe works in the 40s, a rolling pin. Yeah, I think we could go even further back. But likewise, I can use it with a brand new photo and it's still going to work. It's going to have a different connotation when I put it on the page, but it's something that's a little bit timeless. And I love collections like that, and that's why I've kept it so long. So it's been in my stash cut up like this since it was brand new. I think I used those two straight away, and then I've kept it. And likewise, I have the border strips that were in that same collection, and I've obviously used one or two, and I have these left. And then this is a different collection. Same paper company, but a different collection, but it coordinates. So how long have I kept these? Oh my goodness. So this was 2009. Okay? 2009. And this one is 2013. But they match the story that I'm going to tell. Because I think one of the reasons I probably kept these for ages is because they're all kitchen themed. And in my head I've gone, someday I will have kitchen themed stories to tell. It turns out today is that day. Because now I have play kitchen stories to tell. I could also use the same papers for my own kitchen, but hey, this is what's going to work today. I wanted to also pick colors from the photo. So the kitchen is red, and that's what I really wanted to start with. And then I also want to bring in a little bit of that blue. And there is blue in this collection, but it's more an aqua, and I wanted a more true blue. So once I got over my swooning over old 2009 Cosmo Cricut papers, I pulled out some blue. Blue in some different places. So these three little cards are from a Studio Calico kit that I bought in a Black Friday sale because, because kits for $10, that's when I buy kits. I don't subscribe to anything, but I like a bargain. That has to be universal, right? Okay, moving on. So I got out these three because they had that blue that was a good match here. I thought this one would give me a space for some journaling or some stamping, and these two I just kind of liked the sentiment and thought it would be a good match. And then I was looking for a pattern that would be the same blue, and oh my goodness, I must have looked at 20 patterns in my collection, and nothing was quite right. So this is a solid that's the back of a pattern. Again, it's old. I don't know if there's a year on here. 2010. And it's really close. It's not perfect, but it's really close. And I just stopped. Because when you get past looking at 25 papers, I'm never going to get to the layout. I'm just going to look at every single piece of paper I own. Nope, not going to go there. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out because it's pretty much a good combination, and that's good enough. It's going to work. But don't be thinking that I'm only using old stuff. So I've mixed in some newer stuff, new to me anyway, but it is new in 2015. So these two are Studio Calico papers from that Black Friday sale. This one with the wood grain on the diagonal because you can see the wood on the flooring in the picture, so I thought that was a nice mix. And then mushrooms, because when I got the mushroom print, I looked at it and I'm like, oh, I love mushrooms as a pattern, that's really cute, but what on earth am I going to use it for? I'm going to mix mushrooms with kitchen because it's mushrooms like a food, even though you don't eat this kind, but they're red and that matches the kitchen. And you know what? That's enough justification for me. It's fine. So I'm going to go with that and pull all this together and hopefully it will be cute. I also pulled out from that Studio Calico kit these red chipboard hearts. And to go with some more blues and greens and yellows, I've pulled out these True Stories enamel dots. That's everything I've pulled out so far, but it's not enough to make the layout because I haven't pulled out any lettering. I'm probably going to want other things as we go, but it's enough to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and make the call that this is going to be my background paper. And the things that I want to take as inspiration from this page, I want to take this big vertical strip as a piece of inspiration, and I think this concept of having a reverse L. So quite often I do this side of the L, but less often that I do this direction. So I'm going to do it this direction, and I'm just going to start by putting the background together, not worrying about the photos yet, and mimic this combination with these 2 or 3 pieces here and see how that looks as a background. That will give me a place to start, and it doesn't matter if everything else looks entirely different from this layout. It will have got me started cutting and pasting, and that's what I need. I've cut a 4 by 12 strip for the vertical. I've cut 2 pieces to make that, horizontal piece here, one from the borders and one from pattern paper. And then I've cut a 4x6 card that is also in that original layout behind the photo. Oh, in the layout it's this way. So that's where I'm starting, mimicking this, this, and that block behind. And then for now, I'm going to put this aside and work with what I have now. If I get stuck, I'll keep coming back to this layout for inspiration and basically like following the directions. If I feel like I'm getting stuck, then that's where I'll go. Now, one thing that really helps me keep designs balanced, because I'm working on a 12x12 page, is to use things that are numbers that go into 12. Things that are divisible by all the same stuff. So 12 is divisible by 4 because I could put 3 of these and they would be equally spaced, and likewise by 3 I could have 4 of these strips and they would be equally spaced, and 4 by 6. So 3, 4, and 6 are all numbers that go into 12 evenly. Now, I don't think you need to really think about it mathematically. I just know from making lots and lots of pages with these dimensions that if I use strips that are 4 inches wide or 3 inches wide or 6 inches wide on a 12x12 page, and my photos tend to be either 3x4 or 4x6 or maybe 2x2, and everything just seems to have a nice balance. So I try not to get too bogged down in the maths of it, and then instead just know when I go to my trimmer with this 12x12 sheet and go, oh, where am I going to cut? Oh, actually I don't need to panic. I can cut on the 4 and I can cut on the 3, and chances are it's going to work. So here we go. And because some of these patterns are a bit aged, bit vintage, I am going to add brown ink on this page. I'm a little conscious that I'm choosing pattern papers that have cream, but the cream is almost to a yellow, like this line, the line drawings of this pattern. It's almost to a yellow, and then this is a white in the background. So my thought is that I'll use the brown ink to start, and I'll probably use brown ink all the way around the outside of this layout to help warm up the whiteness of the background, because that's a cooler tone. But I think it will all come together, because if you look at this pattern paper with the crazy mushrooms, and the spots on the mushrooms are white, but the stems are cream. So that should work as something that brings it all together and helps me use those 2 shades that don't always work perfectly together. In this case, it should really help it all come together. Here's another thing. If I'm being stuck, I rarely do this anyway, but especially if I feel like I'm stuck or a little scared or worried, I try not to spend any time moving things around with absolutely no adhesive. I go straight to putting glue on stuff and getting it stuck onto the page, because it makes me commit. That is stuck. I have to now work around it. So that's my plan. Brown ink there is cut down just a little bit and then placed over that bottom edge so that the mushrooms run right underneath, because it's the sort of thing that I don't notice straight away, and then once I see it, it's the only thing I see. And when I look at my scrapbook pages, I don't want to have that sort of thing in a paper or a design element that I've put on the page. I don't want the only thing I see to be something about a product. I want the only thing I see to be photos that I really love, or a story that I really want to tell, or embellishment that I had a lot of fun making. But I don't really want it to go, oh, I wish that I had used a different place on that pattern paper, because that's not so fun. So there we go. Okay, then going to try this little block in here somewhere. I think I'll go ahead and get these photos trimmed. I'm going to try them with a white border, again to see if it helps with mixing the white and the cream. And then if I don't like the white border, I can trim it down again to just the photo. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and try this on the horizontal, and because I go ahead and glue it, that means I'm probably going to go ahead and stay with it that way and just build on top if I decide that I don't want so much of it to show. I'm going to try the photo stacked up toward the right hand side, and I'm hoping, yeah, that I got this so that that top photo will go just a little bit off the top edge. Now, I'm not loving this little bit that's stuck in between, but other than that, I'm happy with the placement here. I don't think I need to go back and panic and look at the other layout just yet. So I think instead, the next biggest element that I had to include was this little set of 3 cards. And actually now, if I put them there, that means that they're right on top of that blue, and it emphasizes that it's not an exact match. That's not ideally what I want. So I think for now, I'll set those aside. I may come back to them. They may not work on this layout, and that's okay. I try not to stress about it. And instead, I do want to include things from here. So I'll pick a few bits to cut out and move them around and see what's best. I've chosen 3 cut apart cards from that pattern paper, but I'm not quite sure on where they should go. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to stress about that. I'm going to go back to this original layout and figure out where I had put embellishment on this page and see if I can translate it over. So I had 3 groups of embellishments, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. So here's my train of thought, that I should be able to translate that to something here, and something here. So 1, 2, 3. Then again, I'm going to put that layout away rather than try and look at it so closely that it all seems a bit too much. And I'm just going to roughly say this one's going to go up here, put the journaling one here in the middle, and this one over here. Now obviously this is too big to just go there, but it's a pattern that I'm okay with using the side. I think you can still tell that it's a bowl if you can't see the whole thing. So to make myself commit and not be able to change my mind, I'm going to go ahead and cut it apart. Now, I was saying I wasn't loving this little gap here, so I'm going to go ahead and work in this space. I want the mushroom paper to show, perhaps, would be good. Or maybe the better idea is if I cut that bowl down. Again, I just have to commit. Cut it up, and if it doesn't work, then I choose something else, because there is no shortage of paper or embellishment here. So I can just choose something else if it doesn't work. Okay, I think that will work. It's going to have something else with it. This I think will work up here, but it needs a couple things. One, it's too big and it's too tall. So I'm going to cut it down to right underneath that larger canister. Oops, sorry. And ink that edge, and I'm going to run it off the top, so that will make it a little bit taller there too. But I don't want this red right on top of that red, even though it's a lovely red match, which is always helpful, but I want some blue to break it up. I'm going to go back to that blue and just put in a layer here. But to make it less boxy, I'm going to bring in a border punch. And I think one of the things that I suggested in that episode 4, not on that particular layout, but another one, another of the layouts that I shared, was to use a notebook paper punch. And that's something I haven't used in ages, and I still love the look. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull out an old favorite. I'm just paying attention to my little dots here so that I don't have this where the edge comes in the middle. I want the edge to be between the circles, not in the middle of one. And then this also going off the top. And then I can just trim off all of that extra at once rather than trying to guess and maybe getting it right, maybe getting it wrong. This just always seems easier for me. And I'll put more stuff here. I'm not worried about that being all on its own. But now I've dedicated this as an area of embellishment. I know this is going to be an area of embellishment, and this too, along with some journaling. Now to make these two work, I think I need to deal with this little spot that's bothering me. And It's just that there's this small spot here, and I could have brought the photos down. I know there are a million different ways I could have prevented having this little gap here, but it's there. And so my easiest way is to just deal with it once it's there. The other thing I've noticed is that I have this yellow up here and a yellow in this piece that I want to use. There's kind of a muted yellow here, but I haven't really included much yellow. So I'm just going to put those two problems together and come up with something that will work. So I've cut a little piece of yellow from that paper. Add some ink so that it doesn't look so stark against everything else. Once you start inking, you have to ink everything, really, just to make it all work. We're going to tuck this behind. A little bit more here. What I wanted to do was to bring in some little strips that are not perfectly shaped so that I can just build up these little layers. This is that piece that I trimmed off the top there. I'm going to tuck this underneath as well. And I'll just have this little grouping of tiny little strips, and I'll pick up all these pieces a million times just to get them tucked underneath. And I'll take adhesive off the photo and things like that. Of course, you could plan better and do it in the right order and then not worry about getting glue on top of your photo that you have to take off. But this works for me, and when I get really stuck, a white eraser will pull the rest of it off. So I'll take care of that in just a second. And so what I'm looking at is this is going to go behind here. What else do I want to bring in? Well, all these other groupings have the blue with them, so I'd like to bring in a bit of blue. And actually, looking up here, I wouldn't mind bringing in a little bit of that turquoise. So I'll see if there's something, again, that's small that I could cut out that would bring in that color. And I want to bring in some of that blue, so maybe if I don't have a piece, if I don't have the turquoise, do I do a bit of this? I'm going to try it. Scallops on a layout with a boy. I think it's still okay. We'll see. Or there's stars on the kitchen. So that was the other thought I had, was that I could maybe make some stars. I'm okay with there being scallops and flowers, but I'm going to take this out because I think it's too big. That pattern is too big for the tiny little space I have there. So instead I'm going to go with that star idea. And I have yellow stars in these enamel dots, and I have a really tiny little star punch, and that could be what brings in my blue. So I'm going to punch some little stars from the pieces that I've cut off the top. Sometimes even with a larger embellishment like this where the bowl is quite big and I had to cut it down to fit, I still need more. I need something bigger to make it work. So I've pulled this journaling card that matches that spice jar up there, and again I'm going to only use part of it. And this, if I fit that behind there, I can still have the mushroom paper visible so that you can tell that block goes all the way across. But it brings all of these little horizontal pieces together, and the bowl is going to fit nicely in there, brings in the colors that I want. So sometimes more is more. A lot of the time, more is more. And I want just a little tiny angle, just a couple of degrees. I don't want to overdo my angles and have it make your head tilt. I want things to stay nice and reasonable. I want this piece to go over that edge, and in fact I could try pulling it all the way to the end of the mushroom. No. In this case I want just, well, actually it's going to go right over that edge, but not cover up too much of that mushroom. Okay, and then I punched my little tiny stars from the blue paper. And this will bring in that blue to this little embellishment grouping. Place them in places where they can overlap quite a few things. So that's overlapping the photo, this blue, the mushroom, the green, and the bowl, all with one teeny tiny little star. And then I have those two, so I'm going to add a third one over here. Again, I'm overlapping several things. It goes onto the mushroom, the green, and the bowl, and specifically the stripes and the edge of the bowl. because now I have this little triangle that brings that grouping together. I might want to put something inside, like a monogram or something, but I don't know that that's particularly something I want on this layout, but it's something that can be useful on different pages. Now I need to move over to this side of the page, get my journaling in place, get my title on, and then add that final bit of embellishment. But if I do it in that order, I get the journaling and the title done before I finish all the embellishment, then it means I don't ever run out of room for the important things that I want to get on the page. Sometimes it's really easy to run away with the embellishment and then not get that story down, and that was the whole reason I wanted to pick these photos and I was excited to make this page. So I need to kind of look at my priorities and say, wait, the thing that was really exciting me about this was the combination of the photos and the story. So I'm going to write that first, and then I'll get the embellishment. And then I know how much room I have for the embellishment left on the page. I think just underneath there is going to be the best bet. And then this one moving up from there, but tucked underneath so that the journaling boxes overlap, and that will make it feel a little more natural when the story flows from one card to the next. And then letter stickers. I knew that I wanted to use gray letter stickers with this for some reason. I think because if I went with red, it's going to be too much. And I don't have a good match to this lovely turquoisey jade green. So that wasn't going to work. I knew from finding the paper that matching the blue was a nightmare, so gray is what I'm going to go with. And these are probably one of my favorite thickers ever. And because of that, I don't have an E, and the word that I want to spell has an E, so I'm going to fake it. I also don't have an N, and I'm going to fake that by chopping up an M. And my reasoning behind this is that if your mind says to you, use this thing that you magically remember, whatever that thing might be, and then you go to find it and it's not exactly perfect, I think you could spend a lot of time trying to find a substitute and not having a lot of luck because your heart is set on something. So it's better to just try to find a way to make it work rather than spending a lot of time comparing other options and seeing what else you could do. Most of the journaling fits here except for little things like the date, which I'm going to add, I think, in this embellishment grouping up here. So I want to go ahead and finish off this title. I pulled this sticker sheet out because I've got the choice of the red or the cream. And the T here makes a lovely little frame to hold the small word. Maybe I need to move this I over a little bit. Just tuck it ever so slightly under that K. And then I have a little pocket there and a little pocket here. Now that I have all that important stuff that I wanted to make sure I got on the page, I know that I can embellish and have lots more room, and I have all of this room left and I can do whatever I want with that. So I want to take a little bit of direction from what I've already done here. So I've punched more stars so that I have 3 for each of the 3 groupings, and I want to bring in this yellow polka dot. So this grouping is going to be bigger than this one, so I've cut the longer yellow strip for the top. Move it down like that, so there's a little bit of yellow there, and I can add this one just behind the blue here. I think next I need to get away from the supplies that I've already used because they're getting a bit repetitive and bring in some other pieces. So I've pulled out some October Afternoon label and word stickers because the yellow is a good match and the cream is a good match to the Cosmo Cricket. And then also these gold Maggie Holmes crepe paper label stickers with little words, and I thought bringing in a touch of gold to each one could be a nice little mix. But I'm going to start with the labels. So I want something small for this grouping. There's a little bit of this green here, so I think it might be nice to bring this green in with the stickers. And then I'm going to bring in these gold labels. Not loving the horizontal block here and here because I end up with that piece trapped. So maybe I need to bring this down to this side of the embellishment so that I'm looking at this embellishment cluster with a diagonal line, just like I would look at a 12 by 12 and often look from the top right to the, or top left to the bottom right, just like we read, or the end of a Z along the page. But here I'm looking at that same way to look at it, but I'm looking at it in this small piece here. And I've not done that perfectly, so I covered up part of that cut edge, but not the whole thing. So I just keep building little spots in where I have to fix it with more embellishment, but that's okay. And just look at these little words and see if there's something that's a good match. That goes with that aqua quite well. I decided I will go ahead and bring the red in here by using part of a red edged label, and then I'm going to put the other part, not there on the photo, but in the top cluster. So actually the small edge can probably fit here, but I just feel like there's a little bit too much blue here, and so that could be balanced out, or indeed just balanced, with a little bit of red. Then I need something over here to, this is kind of floating a bit, and this blue is looking really open. So I'm going to bring in another label sticker here. At first I thought maybe this is getting really, really wordy up here, but I kind of wonder about putting just a little ampersand in between here, and then that reads as a phrase like childhood is wonder and playtime. And now for my little stars, I want to make a little triangle around each grouping. I need to do something else with this because this is really a bunch of pieces put together really closely. This is a bunch of tiny pieces closely. This is tiny pieces that are close. And then these two pieces are bigger and more open. I need something else there. Remember, I only used part of this bowl down here. Well, why don't I use the other part of the bowl to finish off that left side at the top, because that will give me more layers and more texture, and has that pattern inside. It's not a big open space like those two layered labels. Pick this up again. Now that improves this little grouping, but it leaves me with an awkward space here. So maybe I need to go back to something that hasn't appeared there. Like maybe I need to bring in this green crosshatch print. It's going to go under all of these layers. I don't have any of it over here, so I wonder about tucking just a little bit of it to the left there. I basically want to pull all of this up and put it underneath. Of course I do, because it would be way, way too simple if the best placement was something that wasn't already glued down. So a tiny little bit of that yellow just to finish up here. Really little bit. Dates there, journaling's there. Last little thing I'd like to do is add something of a different texture. I'd originally pulled out those chipboard hearts, but now that I've put so much of this slightly darker red, I don't think they're a good match. But I still have these enamel dots. So I wonder about using either the yellow or the green, because I brought in a little bit of each of those. And I'm just wondering, I think the green will be better because some of these groupings have quite a bit of yellow. So I have 5 altogether, so I can't do 3 in each grouping like I did with the blue. So instead, I'll work with what I already have and just add to 1 star in each grouping. I'll add the green enamel dot. And this is a good check because I meant to come back and add my blue star over here. And now it's there. So that is everything finished. I'm back from a big break and in the mindset. And if you do one where you're copying yourself and you think, oh, actually, no, I'm stuck, remember, you can either do a direct copy and just change the papers. No one will know when they're flipping through your album that this page from 1 month looks the same in design except for different pattern papers or different colors. That's absolutely fine. So you can keep just copying your own work that you love until you feel the magic come back and you feel a little more confident. And I hope that means you'll be scrapping plenty. Now, speaking of which, I'd love for you to join us for a little conversation over on Facebook in our Scrapbook Like a Superhero group. If you'd like to pose a question to Glitter Girl, you can ask there on the Facebook group. You can ask in the comments here on YouTube or on Shimelle.com. And we will see what we can get up to next Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you very soon. Could I say come together anymore? Probably not.